He didn't have a mixtape. He wasn't dropping 40-point games in high school. And when he got drafted, some analysts literally called him a reach. His shots too weird, too skinny, not explosive enough, a decent role player maybe. But Tyrese Halliburton didn't just survive the league. He took it over. Now he's one of the most efficient, creative, and clutch point guards in the entire NBA. He's led the Indiana Pacers back to relevance. He's dropping 20 and 10 nightly, and he's doing it all with a smile and no apologies. So how did a kid from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, who wasn't even ranked coming out of high school, become one of the NBA's brightest stars? This is the story of Tyrese Halliburton, the quiet genius who silenced every single doubter. Before he was an all-star, before he was dropping dimes on national TV, before his name was even mentioned in NBA conversations, Tyrese Halliburton was just a lanky kid in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, a quiet town where basketball wasn't exactly the headline sport. He wasn't born into a basketball powerhouse family. He didn't attend a prep school. He didn't have a personal trainer at age 10. He didn't even crack top 100 national recruiting lists by his senior year. In fact, nobody outside of the state of Wisconsin knew who Tyrese was. But here's what made him special from the beginning. He didn't care. While other kids were chasing mixtapes and social media clout, Halliburton was obsessed with getting better. He studied film. He asked coaches questions. He broke down plays like a future coach. At Oshkosh North High School, he led his team to a state championship his senior year and was named Wisconsin Gatorade Player of the Year. Still, most major colleges looked the other way. Why? Too skinny, awkward shooting form, not elite athleticism, ceilings too low. Only one Power 5 school gave him a serious offer, Iowa State. And even then, fans weren't expecting much. He was supposed to be a development project, someone who would ride the bench for 2 years and maybe contribute as a senior. But the fire inside Tyrese Halliburton? That couldn't be measured on any ranking list. From the minute he stepped onto the Cyclones campus, he was on a mission: prove every single doubter wrong. When Tyrese Halliburton stepped onto Iowa State's campus, nobody had him circled as the future of the program. He wasn't a 5-star recruit. He wasn't expected to start. He wasn't even supposed to play significant minutes early on. In fact, Tyrese was widely seen as a developmental piece, someone who might contribute in 2 or 3 years. But by mid-season of his freshman year, he had not only earned a starting spot, he had become the engine of the Cyclones. Tyrese didn't take over games with flash. He did it with control, vision, and unreal efficiency. He averaged just 6.8 points, 3.6 assists, and 1.5 steals, but he shot 51.5% from the field, hit an incredible 43.4% from 3, and finished the year with one of the lowest turnover rates in the entire country. He even made national headlines after dropping a triple-double with 0 turnovers, an ultra-rare stat line that had NBA scouts paying attention. But what made Tyrese special wasn't just the numbers, it was how he played. He didn't force anything. He read the game like a chessboard. He made everyone around him better. He had an elite feel for the game, the kind that doesn't show up on highlight reels, but makes coaches fall in love. By the time his sophomore season came around, Tyrese was no longer a hidden gem. He was the undisputed leader of Iowa State, and he didn't disappoint. Averaged 15.2 points, 6.5 assists, 5.9 rebounds, and 2.5 steals per game. Took on a much larger scoring load, became a mid-range and floater assassin, perfecting his change of pace style, kept his turnover numbers low despite a massive usage increase. And perhaps most importantly, he showcased that strange-looking shooting form and proved it worked. He wasn't a volume shooter, but he was ridiculously efficient, shooting over 50% on 2-pointers and continuing to knock down threes. NBA scouts took notice. He was no longer a maybe. He was a first-round lock. Unfortunately, halfway through his sophomore season, Halliburton suffered a fractured left wrist, ending his season early. Some wondered if that would hurt his draft stock. Would teams be scared off by the injury? Would he risk staying for a 3rd year to rebuild momentum? Tyrese made the call. Declare for the 2020 NBA draft. And while he wasn't projected as a top 5 pick, many teams began seeing the value in a high IQ, pass-first guard with elite efficiency. The Sacramento Kings were one of them, and with the 12th pick in the draft, they made a move that would change the franchise and Halliburton's life. forever. From the minute Tyrese touched an NBA floor, it was obvious. This wasn't a rookie. This was a point guard prodigy. He averaged 13 points and 5 assists off the bench, shot 41% from three, was a finalist for Rookie of the Year. But Sacramento was in chaos, a revolving door of coaches, locker room tension, and no clear vision. Still, Tyrese was the bright spot, poised, precise, and mature beyond his years. Then, in a move that shocked the league, the Kings traded him. Halliburton was sent to the Indiana Pacers for Domantas Sabonis. Even he was shocked. Even Kings fans were angry. Why would you trade the one guy who actually wanted to stay? But for Tyrese, it was a blessing in disguise. When Tyrese Halliburton landed in Indiana, he wasn't just handed the keys to the offense. He became the engine, the brain, and the soul of the Indiana Pacers, all at once. And the results? Immediate. In his first full season with the Pacers, Tyrese didn't just improve, he exploded. 20.7 points per game, 10.4 assists per game, among the top in the league, 49% field goal, 40% from three, 87% free throw, one of the most efficient 20-10 guards in modern NBA history. But it wasn't just about stats, it was about impact. Indiana, a team that had been lost in the East since the Paul George era, suddenly had an identity again. And that identity? Unselfish, intelligent, and electric. Tyrese wasn't just scoring, he was creating looks for everyone, unlocking Miles Turner's offensive game, reviving Buddy Hield, and making rookies like Benedict Mathurin and Jarace Walker look like seasoned pros. In 2023, Halliburton was officially named an NBA All-Star, the first Pacer since Victor Oladipo. But even more meaningful, his peers started giving him his flowers. Players across the league began publicly praising his playmaking, poise, and personality. Kevin Durant called him a floor general who's going to be a problem for years. Paul George said he plays like a 10-year vet. Even LeBron James took notice during a post-game presser, praising Halliburton's IQ and command of the floor. Suddenly, the safe pick from 2020 was being mentioned in the same breath as Luka, Ja, and Trey. Halliburton doesn't need elite speed or a flashy handle. He manipulates defenses with hesitation, misdirection, and vision that borders on psychic. He'll hit a skip pass no one else even sees. He'll walk the ball up and still catch you slipping. His two-man game with Miles Turner? Unstoppable. And here's the scary part. He rarely makes mistakes. In 2024, he had one of the lowest turnover-to-assist ratios in the entire league, despite having the ball in his hands more than almost any other player. With Halliburton at the helm, Indiana went from a bottom dweller in the East to one of the most dangerous young teams in the conference. Their ball movement, pace, and creativity, all a reflection of Tyrese. Their ability to close games without a go-to scorer, all made possible by Tyrese's poise and playmaking. He doesn't need to score 30. He doesn't need to dominate the highlight reels. He just wins possessions, wins moments, and wins trust. And as the 2025 playoffs approached, the Pacers weren't a feel-good story anymore. They were a legit threat because of one man. What separates Halliburton? It's not just his stats, it's his mind. He reads defenses 2 passes ahead, he's elite in transition, he rarely makes mistakes, and he's got a deadly floater and a funky jumper that still goes in at a 40% clip. But more than that, he makes everyone better. Buddy Hield's revival? Tyrese? Obi Toppin's emergence? Tyrese. Pacers playoff push? Tyrese. And he's not chasing the spotlight. He's goofy, fun, extremely likable, and one of the best leaders under 25 in the league. They called him overrated. They said he'd be lucky to make a roster. They said his jumper was broken. Now, he's dropping 20 and 10 every night. He's one of the top 3 passers in the NBA, and he's building something real in Indiana. Tyrese Halliburton didn't follow the hype. He followed the work. And now, he's the best player you're still not talking about enough. Don't wait for the next viral clip to believe in him. You're witnessing greatness in real time.